Today is Wednesday, January 18, 2023. The location is the Olympia Candy Kitchen in Goshen, Indiana. My name is John Bender, and I'm conducting an interview with Kare Anderson on behalf of the Goshen Historical Society. Production is by 5 Core Media of Goshen College. Thank you, Kare, for sharing the story of the Olympia Candy Kitchen, now in its 111th year as a family-owned business. Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Kare Anderson. Like you said, Olympia Candy Kitchen. I'm a 4th generation candy maker, restaurateur, operator at the Olympia.
Who founded the business and when?
The business was founded in 1912 by a Greek immigrant. His name was Sam Husmus, who then my great-grandfather worked for and bought the business from in 1922, around.
And where are you located?
We're located at 136 North Main Street, Goshen, Indiana.
And original location?
It is the original location, yes.
Why is it called the Olympia?
I don't know specifically. I would assume it was from the Greek immigrants. I believe when Sam Husmus had it, it was called Columbia Candies. And then when my grandpa got it, great-grandpa, excuse me, Nick Pathless, changed the name to Olympia Candy Kitchen.
And when did he join the business?
He joined the business in 1920, I believe. Worked for a few years, met his wife, and then they bought the place in 1922, 23.
And he also came from Greece in the early part of the 20th century.
He did, yeah. He was 15 years old when he came over.
Say more about Nicholas and who he married and the business partnerships that followed.
Sure, yeah. Well, he met his wife here, as I said, and her name was Leona Long. They were married in 1923. They had one son, Lamar, my grandfather. 1922, Nick and his nephew, Chris Angelo, bought the business and operated it as partners until 1946, when Nick and Angelo's brother, Pete, joined the partnership as well. Then my grandpa, Lamar, began working in the store at an early age, actually around age 10. He became a partner then in 1946.
And who did your grandfather marry?
My grandfather married Margaret Ann Hickey on February 12th, 1943. And then they had 2 children, Dr. Dan Pathless, and then also my mother, Kathy Anderson.
And he remarried after his first wife?
Correct, yes. Then he married Margaret Ann Hoke, who had 2 daughters, and she passed in 2018.
What changes did your grandparents introduce?
I believe my grandpa Lamar had it remodeled in 1954 and added this counter that we're sitting at today. I actually have the blueprint still for this counter that was put in. It was made by Bash and Blessing out of Chicago, so they're no longer in business, so I have to have parts made for stuff. But it's really neat. This countertop was added, and the lunch, and I think a lot of the food, they kind of moved more towards having more food than just, Sundays. The older menus, it was like 30 to 50 Sundays that they had. So it was candy and ice cream. And then they started adding the sandwiches and having other foods available.
Did they make the ice cream as well as the candies?
They used to, yeah. Yeah, they made the ice cream. I've got stamps downstairs for different cities, and they must have sent it, around Indiana, 2 different areas. But we stopped making ice cream probably 50 years ago.
Your grandparents bought the business outright, and when was that?
That was in 1964, and then purchased the building itself from Chris in 1966.
But Nick continued to come by every day to...
Yeah, he worked well into his into later life in the 70s, which my grandpa then did too, Lamar. So they both worked well into their 80s.
And your mother became the owner after your father passed.
My grandfather.
Your grandfather.
Correct. Yes, my mom bought it in 1981, and she still is the owner today.
And your Lamar passed away when?
Yeah, in 2013.
13.
Correct.
Over the years, what difficult situations did the Olympia Candy Kitchen face, and how were they met?
Well, we, just got through the pandemic, well, sort of. That was really tough. Between closing down, I actually built what I called the curbside service out front. So there was a window that you would go and order from. So that was definitely a challenge. The last 3 years have been a challenge, but I always said if they got through the Great Depression, we can get through this as well.
And did you install the outdoor seating?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, we've kind of had that. I think my mom started to do it in the 80s, early 90s. And then we had the bump out put in, boy, I'm gonna say probably 20 years ago now. And then just recently have added, some more outside seating over here.
When did you get involved in the business?
Oh, it's been about 20 years ago now. I was 26 and I'm 45, so about 20 years, we'll call it.
How did you prepare to join?
I didn't. I mean, I've worked at other restaurants when I was younger. I worked at the Olive Garden and things of that nature. But when I just came back, I was just helping out to do drinks because I knew how to do it from earlier, work with my mom. And she had me come and work, and that was 20 years ago. So I just kind of took over then after that.
So you've done everything. The grill, candy making, hosting.
Yeah, pretty much everything you could think of I've done here for sure.
What services and products do you offer as a restaurant and candy store?
Sure. Well, quite a few products on the candy side, and we make our own caramel and our own creams, and we hand dip everything. Seasonally, we make candy canes at Christmas time, and hearts at Valentine's Day, and bunnies at Easter. And then on the food side of things, we make a lot of things, which I never knew before, I started working. But I mean, the simple syrup down to the chocolate syrup, we make our own mayonnaise, potato salad, vegetable beef soup, chili. We have a lot of homemade products on the restaurant side. So we do breakfast and lunch. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, a lot more than I thought. I thought, well, it's a candy store, how hard could it be? But there's a lot of layers to it.
Whose recipes are these? Who came up with it?
Well, they're passed down, from the generations past. I'm sure my great-grandpa did, and he got a lot of the candy recipes from, there was actually a guy, Harry, that used to come over from the Philadelphia and South Bend, and I think helped them learn a lot of the candy trade as far as making it. So those recipes would be the same as they were back then. That's something we don't ever want to change.
What's the story behind the tradition of phosphate drinks, fresh squeezed orange juice, nut olive sandwiches?
Yeah, well, that's a lot you just said there, but we hand squeeze our orange juice, we hand squeeze lemonades. Like I said, we make our own mayonnaise, and then the nut olive is probably the most unique item that we have on the food side of things. It's roasted cashews, which we roast here, green olives, lettuce and mayonnaise on a toasted sandwich. So people talk about it and come get it from miles around.
Why are you not open for business on a Wednesday?
That's a good question. Well, I think it used to be where a lot of the businesses downtown shut down on Wednesdays, religious holiday type thing. And then I think it became Men's Day at the golf course, so I think they all shut down. And not that it had to be a man, but they would go out golfing, I believe, on a Wednesday. And I think we're probably about the only ones still around that, would have that.
What do people mean that they come here for the atmosphere?
Well, yeah, it's nostalgia. It's, we try not to change anything as much as possible. So we have grandparents that come in now that say that their grandparents brought them in. So it reminds them of older, slower times. And the tin ceiling's the same, the lights are the same, the candy cases. like I said, this was put in '54, and the middle booths out there were put in 1966. So a lot of the things are the same. I mean, I changed the dishwasher, but you know, we try to keep it looking the same as much as possible.
The ceiling is original?
It is original, yeah. I had it repainted in like 2017, so it looks a lot better than it did.
And it's made of tin.
It is a tin ceiling, yeah.
Yes.
And then things like the sign out front, I had, you know, a sign company take that down because you couldn't see any of the red in the Coke anymore because the sun had faded it. So they refurbished it, and when they did, they said, "Oh, do you want us to change these light bulbs out?" I said, "Light bulbs? What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, it lights up." And so they changed the light bulbs, and it worked right away. They didn't have to change a ballast or anything, and I think that sign's from like the 50s or 60s.
Who is involved in the business today?
I am, my brother is, and then we have probably 10 to 12 employees right now.
And during a week, what percentage of your customers are regulars?
That's a good question. Probably 70 to 80%. I mean, most of them we know by name and what they order and that kind of thing, so yeah.
And I noticed in your guest book a visitor from New Zealand and from Florida. Some of these could be repeat, but what does a first-time customer do when they enter?
A lot of times they'll kind of ooh and ah, looking in, and you can kind of tell because they're not sure exactly what to do right away or where to go, and then they have questions. And so yeah, we get people from all over, you know, from the big cities. And I think the college brings people in, but yeah, we're definitely a destination.
What family values have guided the business?
Oh, I would say, you know, customer service, you know, taking care of people, keeping the quality the same over the years.
And what best work memories do you have?
Work memories or memories in general? Yeah, I joke. Just because, I mean, a lot of my fondest memories were before I worked, you know, when I was a kid coming in. I mean, it was fun and nostalgic for me even as a kid. And probably Candy Cane Day. We take one day out of the year and make candy canes. That was always fun because family came together and it was kind of like a family reunion. Looking back at it, it was a lot of fun. I got to skip school for the day too.
So extended family was involved in?
For sure, yeah. My uncle, my cousins, they would all come and help, yeah.
When did you start online sales?
I started that probably in 2003 or so with the website, and knew that it would be important coming up. And yeah, we sell candy all across the country.
How far?
Coast to coast.
Coast to coast. How are you involved in the community outside of Olympia?
Me personally? Well, I'm on the EID board, which is the Economic Improvement District, which is basically the downtown area. So doing flowers and, you know, the bump outs and all those kind of things now where we're doing the outside seating, the angled parking and such. So I'm involved with that. Maple Crest Country Club, I was the president last year, so I mean, I'm involved in those areas.
You sponsored one of the holes at Maple Crest. What was that?
Good question, actually. My grandpa Lamar was a founding member, charter member at Maple Crest, and actually on that hole, it's the 14th hole, by the tee box there's a tree that they took out of his front yard on Wilson Avenue and transplanted it out there. So I thought it'd be special to honor him and sponsor that hole.
And I read somewhere that Olympia also sponsored a baseball and basketball team.
Yeah, well, the first women's basketball team before, you know, they had women's sports in school, we sponsored that team. I know my great-grandpa Nick was highly involved in all the sports out at the high school and everywhere in town. There was this fast-pitch softball team called the Sweeties, and So we always try to help out where we can in the community for those things.
For the Goshenites.
Yep, for sure.
What changes would you like to see in the future?
Well, not a whole lot, you know, just people to continue to come and come back. You know, the repeat business is important, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that with all the regulars that come back. But yeah, so just trying to be consistent and deliver a good product and good service too.
A reflective question, how has the business shaped you?
That's a good question as well. I guess it's made me realize that, you know, some things are important, some things aren't as important as I thought maybe when I first started. You know, the customer is always important, but you truly can't please everybody. Some people you just can't. And I had to accept that, you know, because I always worried that, you know, it would fail under me. You don't want to be the fourth generation and mess it up, so to speak. So, I mean, I've just kind of learned to pick and choose my battles and to kind of stay ahead of things as far as like maintenance and stuff, because everything is old and you just have to make sure that you stay ahead of it instead of being reactive, you're proactive.
What are your favorite foods and sweets?
My favorites, boy, I like a lot of it. I like our breakfast, I like our omelets. Lunch, I like our burgers, are good. The candy side, it's all pretty good too, although I do like the nut-covered rum balls. Turtles are always good, toffee is good.
Have you introduced any new candies?
We had for a while when we had a lot of people working, you know, we have, like everywhere, had staffing issues, so we haven't added a whole lot. We're trying to keep up with, you know, what we're making now. I did add on the food side of things, biscuits and gravy. I added a few of those things. We've tried to add as many like dark chocolate products as that's become more popular over the last 10 years, I'd say, or so.
Well, I think we barely scratched the surface, but it's been a wonderful story, and we wish you the best for 2023 and another 111 years beyond.
Right, yeah, let's hope so. I appreciate you coming, thank you.